Hello, everybody. Ron Callis here. Another episode of Automation Unplugged, brought to you by my day job over at One Firefly. Hope you guys and gals are having a good day. I am going to jump over here to my Facebook page and see if that is cooperating today. I recently upgraded my router at my home, and I now have blazing fast internet. So I'm hoping that that helps us deliver a better experience for you folks that are watching, whether you're watching live or in a recording after the fact. If you are watching, don't forget to like this feed, stream, post, whatever you want to call it. Like it, comment, share it. Hey, Sean, I see you saying, hey, what's up, bud? Thanks for watching. And actually, you know what? I have some exciting news for everyone here. Today is my birthday. I'm pretty excited about that. So I made it another year older, maybe a little bit wiser, maybe not. You'll have to ask my wife. But today's a big day. And then what else is big this week? I have robots this week. So for those of you that watch me on or follow me on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, you'll know that I'm a big outside of the house and outside of One Firefly and Automation Unplugged. I'm a robotics mentor with local public high school through the FIRST organization. And this is a big week because it's competition week. So we have a big event at the the West Palm Beach Convention Center. And I'll be competing with my team in the South Florida Regional. So wish us luck. If you want to follow the team, it's on Instagram and Facebook at M3Robo, R-O-B-O, M3Robo. All right, so let's bring in our fun guest today. We have Mark Cichowski of Clarity AV International, and I believe I got that right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark.
Right on. That's rare when that name is pronounced correctly.
Awesome. Well, I even got your last name right. I was like, man, I'm like giving myself a pat on the back. I did it. I didn't mess it up yet. And a lot of people, Mark, probably, I don't want to say probably, but maybe know you more so from your technology and business summit events, which have been quite the rage and growing in popularity and attendance back since 2009 when you founded those.
Yep, for sure.
So, Mark, how's your day going out there in sunny California?
It is wonderful, and thank you very much for having me. And I'm extra honored to be able to celebrate your birthday virtually with you, Ron. This is great.
Hey, man, cheers. I'm cheering. I'm holding my cup of water up to the camera. Cheers.
I had a little, the balloons and stuff ready, but I don't know how much that would have really translated on video. So I figured I'd just wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I think, Mark, you and I officially hold the record for the longest game of phone tag.
That's right.
Maybe ever.
I think Guinness called each one of us and said, "I heard you guys were calling for I don't know how many weeks it was."
it was pretty comical. I want to say we exchanged at least 10 plus, maybe 15 plus voicemails back and forth trying to get connected back in January, February.
But we're here. Here we are. This is awesome.
Here we are. So, Mark, I would love, if you would be so kind, for you to tell my audience a little bit about yourself, just kind of your background. You've been in the AV space for quite a while now. You're clearly a veteran. I put in the show notes or the notes on the Facebook feed for this show that you were actually with Sonance as international sales manager back when CEDIA was founded.
Correct.
And you had a good career before that, and you've had a pretty fantastic career after that. So can you tell me and our audience a little bit about yourself?
For sure, and very, very well worded. So, the experience is another way of saying old, but that's okay.
No, come on now.
No, but actually, it's funny you say that because, I have been in the industry for a while. I will say, and I'm very proud of this whole industry and what I've done. I mean, I started this industry in the 12 volt, or in this industry in the 12 volt channel way back in '79 when I lived in Jersey. Really good experience, just kind of coming up the ranks and working at a retail shop, and it just stayed in my blood. So here's how I'm dating myself, Ron. So back in '79, I'm dating this really nice gal, and her brother. This is really going to date me, but I got to say it because it's funny. Sure. He was upgrading his 8-track to a cassette player, in his car.
Oh, so you were the guy to call.
No. The thing is that I wasn't the guy to call. He actually said, "Would you like to put the 8-track in your car because I'm getting rid of it?" So he helped me wire it and run the speakers to the back. And went, this is kind of fun. And literally a week later, coincidentally, a friend that I was going to college with, he said they as a part-time job at a local hi-fi shop. Was I interested? I interviewed and they hired me on the spot. I worked that afternoon selling some car stereos and haven't looked back since then.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of fun. So I did that. Like I said, I'm from Jersey, and I came out to California in the early '80s, and I worked for Federated Group, which is a major retailer here for quite a while. For those of you that are old enough to know that company, is before the Circuit Cities came into town, and certainly before Best Buy. And I worked through the retail ranks, and then I got to know the guys at Sonance, the owners, Scott and Jeff. When they had their own integration firm down in Southern California. And a guy named Dave Donald, who many people probably know that are listening to this presentation, he's been in the industry for a while, and I knew him through my retail days. And he worked for Sonance. And so Scott and Jeff used to come in and got to meet them. And after I left Sonance about a year later, Scott called me out of the blue. And he said, look, Mark, we sold our integration firm, and we're going to do this loudspeakers full time, which is, everybody knows as Sonance and Dana Innovations. We're looking for somebody to run international. And it went right over my head, Ron. I didn't know what he was talking about. He goes, well, if I know anybody, I'll let you know. He goes, no, you dumbass. I said, oh, well, I don't have any international experience. He goes, neither do we. So literally they had 3 models at the time. This is in 1989, right around the CEDIA formation. And they said, here's our product. Here's the world. Here's a credit card. Have a good time. And it was amazing because if you think about it, there's no internet at that time, and it wasn't that distribution of, custom audio wasn't even really a term. So I was, out there and trying to find out how to get this product distributed internationally. Canada, Australia, they speak English pretty easy, but, going over to Europe and trying to find dealers and that. So, I would maybe find out where the B&O dealers were because they're kind of high end. And I kind of took my case and I went around the world and showed speakers, but it really wasn't just talking about Sonance. It was really talking about the whole emergence of, again, what we call custom audio or multi-room or even home theater because, 5.1 systems, they didn't exist back then, hardly at all, especially outside the U.S. So when I would go in to see these people and, it's a typical hi-fi store, the tower speakers sitting all around and they got their receivers there. And I said, what if you could sell 6 speakers instead of 2? What do you mean? And so the whole concept of teaching the international community more about custom and whole house audio and surround sound, that was really almost more the focus than just the product because that emerged, obviously, after CEDIA got formed and that whole channel just exploded. So that's really how I transitioned from, what was hi-fi, what I did into the custom world. And, of course, as a CEDIA channel grew and expanded and the Crestrons of the world got huge and all the other companies did, I just kind of followed along with that and did that for several years.
So Clarity AV International, which you founded, I'm looking here at my notes, in 2002.
Yeah.
And you still own today.
Yes.
Is that the parent company behind the Technology and Business Summits? Is the Technology and Business Summit product, which we'll go into, is that That's correct. The way that it's known to the marketplace? Right.
Clarity is the corporation behind it. And when I started the Tech Summit, just to give you that bridge, after I worked for Sonance for a while, I was in the wireless phone business for a short period of time. I was a Nextel agent, and I was away from CEDIA for a few years. And back in 2002, I hadn't been to CEDIA for probably maybe about 3 years. I went back to the event and, hey, Mark, how you doing? are you doing an international work? We could really use some help. So I just went around and I saw a lot of people I hadn't seen in a few years, and we caught up on things. And several manufacturers said the same thing to me. And I'm saying, this international business of helping other manufacturers go into, the overseas market.
Which is helping U.S. companies go into overseas versus helping overseas come domestic?
That's right. Helping our companies, Triad was one of my clients for many years, and some other ones. So these guys were saying, hey, we could use some help with your contacts and your knowledge of international. I said, this is a business. Literally, 30 days after CEDIA was over, I formed Clarity and I was in business. And I had multiple clients that I was doing really as selling to as an international rep, or selling for as an international rep. So these companies would hire me. I would determine what they had, what they needed, where they could go. And I still had many contacts from my Sonance days. And so I was out there working with several manufacturers, helping them develop their business overseas. So that was that bridge between what I was doing with Sonance, and then the in-between part when I had the wireless company and getting back into the CEDIA channel. Then soon after that, literally less than a year, a couple of the manufacturers that I was working with internationally said, hey, we appreciate the work that you're doing for us internationally. We could use some help in Southern California because we don't have a rep there. Are you interested? And I said, well, this sounds interesting because, it's good product. There's some opportunity. But if I try to do both, I'll do both things really poorly because there's, not enough time in the day.
Sure.
But they were patient. And I said, look, I will look around for somebody to help me, maybe hire somebody to focus more on the domestic. I'll oversee some things, maybe take some key accounts. And about...
Uh-oh, folks. Looks like we have a technology glitch in the matrix.
How about now?
Let's see here. Oh, yep.
You back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, good. So what I was saying is that, I said, we had the opportunity for a SoCal manufacturer's rep firm. So I started a rep firm. It was Clarity AV still, but just for the domestic work. And I hired a full-time guy. We developed that business, and we kind of got a little bit bigger. I used to participate at the EHX. Do you remember those, Ron?
Yeah, I do. I cut my teeth on those events.
There you go.
In the 2000s.
So, when I got the rep firm going and I saw EHX was around there, I talked to some of my manufacturers that weren't displaying, because of course I supported the ones that were in the local market as a rep in Long Beach. And I said to the ones that weren't, I said, why don't we just get a little booth together, and the three of you, because there was three of them at the time, you split the cost, we'll do the grunt work, and we'll get you a presence there. And it worked. We had a little 10 by 10 that worked into a 10 by 20. Then I partnered with one of my manufacturers, and we backed up to each other to get the bigger booths get towards the front of the show. And 3 years into it, we had a 10 by 40 pavilion and a 20 by 80 full booth. 20 by 40 booth was with us, with about 6 lines, and 2 of our other brands, and we were in the second row. And that really got our name out there. Our manufacturers loved it. We had some good traction. Well, when that ended, that was around 2008. I was looking for a way to expose our company and our brand to more people, and I was at an iPro conference. And for those of you that don't know iPro, it's the Professional Rep Association of our industry. Really good organization. They have an event for all their members every year. And there's a guy named Rich Green that was speaking, which, again, many of you probably know. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's really great on future stuff coming up there and how to integrate it. He's an integrator up in the San Francisco area, many, many large clients. One of his claim to fame is that I know he did work for Steve Jobs back in the day. So I listened to him speak, and it was so compelling, Ron, the information that he had to tell everybody. I'm like, the dealers need to know about this. And that was still, with CEDIA, having the big shows around the country. And we understood that CEDIA was a great event, but many people just didn't go to CEDIA for a variety of reasons, travel, cost, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was looking around the room and I saw 2 other reps that I didn't really know that well, and I had an idea to do a local event because EHX was gone, but combine it with some education. Have Rich Green speak. I forgot to turn off my mobile phone. That was a
no worries. By the way, a guy from Access Networks just jumped in and he says, "Yo."
Yo, guy, big supporter of the Tech Summit, and we're a big supporter of him. So thank you. Cool. So. We had a little lunch together with the 2 other reps, and I said, guys, I have an idea. I want to kind of go a little bit old school, do some tabletop displays with our manufacturers, Nothing too fancy. So there's a one-on-one environment, different than a large trade show, and also have Rich Green come to speak to educate the dealers. But here's the rub. We're going to work together even though we're competitors, So they looked at me a little weird at first, but they went, I think I can handle that. So we did it. We put this together. We had about 100 and something dealers come. We had about 26, 27 exhibitors show up, and it really worked well, Ron. We had a lot of bodies. The energy was good. Rich did his presentation, which really went over. We had a packed house. So we did it again. And then we were talking. I said, why don't we just talk to all the reps in the territory? We're all competitors, but this model seems to work. So we got in a room. And we had about 9 or 10 of the rep firms in SoCal. And I tell you, it was really squirmy, as you can imagine, right? It was unprecedented. All these competitive rep firms were in the room together. And I kind of leading the charge. I said, guys, this tech summit that we've done has really worked. I want to have all of us work together. But it doesn't matter if you think so-and-so took a line from you 2 years ago. It's not about us right now. It's about building the industry. You got to check your egos to the door. And let's make this event happen. And it did. And it worked great. In fact, it actually bonded the reps closer together that really didn't know each other because, again, we're all competitors. So that expanded, and I still have my rep firm at this time. And during
you were a Southern California rep.
Right.
And you then ultimately, took your machete out and carved your way through the forest and put together an all rep or all lines event in order to give dealers one place to go to see basically all of their options
at a local level. And that was the key.
At a local level,
right?
And that had not been done before.
Not in this way. And the reps, ego aside, being a rep for so long, the reps know where the bodies are buried. I mean, they know the dealers. They know where to find them. They have their relationships. And that's not to say others don't. I mean, the manufacturers, of course, know them because it's their customer. But the reps are out there, pounding the streets all the time. So they know where all these dealers are and who they are. And they get a lot of, street time with these and face time with the dealers.
By the way, Mark, Ken Erdman just jumped in and he says, "Hi, guys. Came across this by accident. Happy I did." Ken, we're happy you're here as well. Thank you, sir, for watching.
Ken, big CEDIA guy, big industry guy. Love to have him listening in.
Ken's the man. He's the man for sure. And then we have Hagai posted a few comments. He says, well-organized events. And then he says, he's giving you some feedback, Mark, so you have to call him afterwards. He says,
all right.
Said we need to step up the venue in SoCal.
Okay.
So I think you and Hagai need to have a conversation. We're going to be there as well. Thanks, by the way, Mark, for the invite.
Hey, let me tell you, with Hagai and others, this sincerely. So yes, Hagai, I will get in touch with you about that. I want to see what that actually means. But one of the things that we are probably most proud of as the tech summits have developed and evolved is the feedback from people like Hagai, dealers, reps, and otherwise, but actually taking the feedback. This is something that was a wild hair, Ron. This is something I just had an idea. Let's see if it works, and it's really grown and grown, and it's really evolved. So whether it's the venue, the schedule, the content, we are always looking at ways to make this thing better. So we really do sincerely welcome that.
Well, speaking of that, let's talk about some of the evolutions that have happened, or maybe some of the evolutions that you're going to be testing out. This year even, because I know in offline conversation with you at some of your events, you are going to be trying some new ideas out. Can you shed a little light on that, and maybe even furthermore talk about different locations around the country and how they might differ?
Sure, I'll bridge that a little bit because right around that middle time of being into the tech summits for a few years, I sold my SoCal tech firm and focusing on business development with some other companies. But right around the same time, a few reps from other territories like Florida and Great Lakes, they said, "Hey, Mark, we've heard that these tech summits have been successful. Can you replicate that for us?" And as I thought about it, I hadn't thought about it before. I said, it's really a turnkey model. The model works. We just have to make sure the reps get together and they all get along and drive this thing. So that's how it went from just Southern California into the other territories and the evolution. So that was just to bridge that to see how it came to be across the country. So with that said, we have events this year in 10 different cities and 7 different events. So we have events. This is just by calendar. Texas is actually next week. So you Texas people that may get a hold of this, if you're not registered already, come on out to the Texas events. All the events are at techsummitevents.com. That's where you can see them all. Then click on the individual.
I posted a link here. Let me see if I posted the right link.
Yeah.
You know what? I saw it a moment ago, and now I don't see it. So let me post it again. Maybe I deleted it.
Yeah. But we did because Tech Summit Texas, Tech Summit Florida, but Tech Summit events, regardless of where you are in the country, you'll see all of them listed there. Then you can click and you'll go to the individual site for those events. But we're doing Texas next week, and then a month later we're doing a Florida event, and I'll get into that in a second, Ron, because that's some of the evolution that you were talking about. Then we do Southern California the third week of May. Then the Great Lakes is June 14th. That's a single-day event. These other two are two-day events. Then we fast forward through the holidays, and the summer vacations, and then of course CEDIA. Then we jump back in October. The first week of October, we're doing New York, New Jersey. Then we're doing at the end of the month our first event ever in the Atlanta area in the Southeast. That's at the end of October on the 30th. And then our last event of 2018 is in Arizona on November 15th. So we've grown quite a bit and have a lot of different events that we have had around the country, and a lot of this is because the reps in those territories are interested. And then to your point, Ron, of the evolution of the event, besides keeping up with the technology so we can have proper educational events, and whether it's networking or business tools or sales development or RMR or service, we have so many great subjects. The other thing we wanted to do is address the convergence of the markets. And convergence has almost become an overused term, but it's really the one that applies the most. And as I've seen these tech summits develop and other channels getting more interested in the traditional AV world, security guys, lighting, general technology, IoT, things like that, I wanted to find a way to do another event that's a bit outside what the technology and business summit parameters are. And those parameters are, it's a rep-driven event, number one. I didn't mention that before, and that's a huge component that I just want to put a little exclamation mark on. I mentioned the reps before and how the reps got together, but that is really what has made this different. It's gotten people there. It's gotten the right people there. And the beauty of the tech summits is that these are for people who, again, they're not going to CEDIA. And that has nothing to do with CEDIA. CEDIA is fantastic. In fact, they've been a partner with us since day one, and they still are a partner with us in many different ways.
Does CEDIA offer some of their educational content at any of these events?
Yes, sometimes. It doesn't. We don't say that it must be a CEDIA class, but CEDIA sponsors all of the education for us, and they always have a presence there with the table to help us promote the events and be part of it. So we have offered CEUs in the past, and without getting too far ahead of myself, we're speaking with them about developing something a little bit more formal with how we're going to offer CEUs. Maybe have the first class at a tech summit, and then that encourages dealers to not only go to CEDIA, but some of them, it's amazing about how many aren't members. It's kind of disappointing because some of these people are obviously at the tech summits because they want to be educated and see the products, but they aren't CEDIA members and don't go to CEDIA as much because I think it's maybe they don't really know how much they have to offer. So that's a whole nother component that we're trying.
It's a whole nother conversation, but yeah. I do think it's worth exploring how to get the people that attend the summits to ultimately better learn about and better understand the value proposition from being a CEDIA member. But I agree, sure. There's so many folks that participate in this industry that aren't necessarily a subscribing member to CEDIA, although they may attend a trade show.
And it really comes down to, I think it's either a misperception of all that CEDIA has to offer. If you dig in, there's quite a bit. So there's my CEDIA infomercial a little bit. But going back to what we did are going to do for Florida, so I looked at this and I was trying to find a way to have other channels and even manufacturers who typically they don't participate in the tech summits maybe come into the fold to get their product in front of more people as well, and also get an audience of dealers that are from these parallel channels. So literally, Ron, I was putting these words on paper, security and lighting. I was trying to think, what do I call this thing? Because it's really not a tech summit. It's the evolution of the tech summit. So it's called the CASTLE Summit. And where that came from is CASTLE stands for Converging Audio Video, Security, Technology, Lighting, and Entertainment. I had all these words on paper and went, holy cow, that spells castle. so that's what we're calling it. It's a fun little way to do some marketing. Build your castle and this and that. So we're calling it the CASTLE Summit, and we're doing our first one this year in Florida, the first week of May, in Fort Lauderdale. But the other difference in this structure, in addition to doing more outreach to security and lighting manufacturers and, of course, the dealers, is we're having a multi-day event in one location in Fort Lauderdale rather than doing one in Fort Lauderdale and one in Orlando, for example, like we've done in the past, because we're expanding the education dramatically. So the first day of the event is actually education only, which we've never done before. There's only so much time in the day when they do these tech summits, and typically we do a keynote in the morning and then 4 education events throughout the day, 2 in the mid-morning and then 2 in the afternoon. Well, a lot of manufacturers want to do education, but we tried that in the past, and frankly, it failed because there wasn't enough time in the day. Dealers were on the floor. They were going to general session seminars, so they wouldn't go to the manufacturer training. So day one of the Castle Summit in Florida is going to be rep and manufacturer training, and each rep firm that's participating got basically a 2-hour block of time. And so they're allocating that maybe 30 minutes for one company and 30 minutes for another, or a whole hour for another company. So it's going to encourage people to come back multiple days. That's day one. Day two is going to follow the same structure as the other tech summits, which is a keynote in the morning. And then there's 2 morning classes. And then we shut down the classes completely after the morning class is over. And the reason for that is that in other instances, we saw some of the events that just looked like the floor wasn't as busy. And I don't want to pick on EHX, but EHX was one of them because they had such good classes and so many of them, a lot of people didn't think the floor was busy. So we are consolidating that time.
And if you're a paying vendor, you've put money into having people and resources there, you want as many warm bodies to talk to as possible.
You hit it on the head. So after our class is over at 10:45, we open up our doors. Instead of at 8 like we used to because it wasn't enough traffic, we only open up the doors at 10 o'clock. And we go until 3:30. So that condensed time is really focused on the exhibitors. We got a lot of bodies in there. The energy is good. Of course, we serve lunch in there as well. And we have really good experience from this last year when we changed that format and that time to get the traffic on the floor. Everybody liked it. The dealers were in and out of there in an efficient time. They got to go to classes. They got to see the exhibitors. They got a nice lunch. Many of them stayed for the afternoon class. And then we shut it down at 3:30, and that allows if it's a dealer wants to go to lunch or dinner with a rep or a manufacturer, they have time to do their afternoon and evening activities. So we've consolidated the way we have the day over the years to this format. It really worked well last year, so we're doing the same thing. So back to Florida.
That's all based out of feedback. Do you have like a forum or a methodology of getting feedback from your vendors and your reps so that you work on improving each event or year over year?
It's not so sophisticated because I find that if you do something like a survey, the responses are hit and miss. I'm on the phone a lot. I talk to the manufacturer. Says, hey, what'd you like? What did you didn't like? And I take lots of notes, and that's how we evolved. In this past year, 2017, we changed the format to what I just described, and it worked like a charm. So we're going to continue it.
That is, so you've got Texas next week?
Correct. Yeah, we set up on Monday. The event is on Tuesday. That's in Houston. Then Wednesday is moving day between Houston and Dallas, and of course setting up that afternoon and evening for the Dallas event. And then Thursday is Dallas.
Thursday is Dallas. Now, how many, I know past performance is not a guarantee on future performance, but approximately how many companies, integrators, or interested parties end up attending these events? Or let's say Texas.
Yeah, so for Texas last year, this is what I go by, and these now, the numbers that I give you are strictly integrators. I don't count the reps or the exhibitors as
just
part
the
of the total.
Attendees.
Yeah, because the attendees are, so we had about 165, 170 at each location last year. That's about the balance, and it was pretty 50-50 actually between Houston and Dallas, almost right down the middle. This year we're expecting closer to 200 for each event, because usually the second year jumps by a bit, and if pre-registration is any indication, we should hit those numbers. Now, comparatively, a market like SoCal and Florida, which are, been doing it for a few years and people kind of got used to it. The word gets around, hey, you got to go, or why'd you miss it last year? Those numbers, Southern Cal, boy, I think in LA, we had close to 300 people and Orange County wasn't too far behind. But that 200 to 300 per city is usually about the amount of integrators that we get. But the most important thing to realize as a participant or as a manufacturer or as a rep is that, my running joke is that the dealers that come to these aren't there for the free pens. I mean, they are there for many of them there for the whole day. They go to the classes, they interact with the exhibitors and the reps for hours throughout the day. Some of them stay for the afternoon classes. So this is a single day event. And the other beauty of this is that whether you're a one-man band or you're a company with 10, 20, 30 vans on the road, many of these large companies are sending their people to these local tech summit events because they're not spending the money to send them to the CEDIAs or the CESs because it's expensive. They can get the person out of the field for a single day. They get educated. They get to see products they probably would never see before. They get a free lunch, and they're back in the office by late afternoon, and they're on the road the next day. So it's one day rather than multiple days in hotel and plane expenses.
Yeah, it seems like a really great way to improve FaceTime with your vendors and your reps, and at the same time be very efficient and cost effective about doing so.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you can walk around the floor, Ron. I mean, the people huddling up over a product or a brochure. I mean, that's some of the rewarding part that I get out of it. I see the interaction. It's a really one-on-one environment, and it just really forges the relationships more strongly with all three components. The reps, the manufacturers, and the integrators.
No, there's so much value in getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your office, getting out of your normal day-to-day habits to go do something different, such as attending an event like this where you can learn something new. And even if you know maybe everything about the product, just that quality FaceTime. At the end of the day, we're a technology industry, but we're people doing business with people.
That's right.
And so just getting out of the office and shaking hands and asking someone how their family is and how's life, I mean, that's priceless. That's
true. And there's no cost to the dealer. You just got to get there. We don't charge for lunch. We don't charge for the education. So they just got to get there. And then, not that it applies to the dealers, they really aren't too concerned, but it's also very reasonable for the exhibitors because it's not a fancy setup. There's not a lot of we don't have a lot of extra little fees. I mean, some of the places that you have to have these events, the big convention centers, there's all these costs that you have to incur. We keep it small, we keep it tabletop, and we actually limit the size of what a manufacturer can put together because that also creates a level playing field. So whether you're a massive, multi-million dollar company or a small manufacturer, you kind of have that same presence there. And again, it reinforces and it's very conducive to that one-on-one time that's so important.
So, Mark, I always, with my guests, when I can and when I remember and when I think they might be willing to comply, I'd love, we need to wrap up here shortly. We're at 32 minutes. I'd love for you to think about maybe that integrator out there and that's looking to grow, is looking to improve. What are maybe a couple of pieces of advice? I'm sure at this point you've met many hundreds or thousands of technology businesses of all shapes and sizes. What are some of the areas that you would recommend they look at or spend a little more time improving in their business that would overall make them a better business?
Well, without sounding preachy, I mean, the first one that always comes to mind, because integrators are so darn busy, is to work on your business, not just in it. And what I mean by that is continue the education, continue to learn, look at what's going on out there in the marketplace. I mean, I talked about convergence before, and there's people like Julie Jacobson that talk about the IoT and how to embrace that, not be scared of it. Or we're not going to have 20 Amazon Alexa devices around the house to take place of a Control4 system. I mean, it's just not the same thing. But consumers, that's what they're facing. They see that. They see the advertising. Why am I spending so much on this? That's, I think, a lot of dealers have to learn more about what else is happening in the industry and provide their customers more modern solutions, meaning that the same old that maybe worked even 2-3 years ago isn't working today as much because the consumers are more keyed into all this cool technology. They think a few apps on their phone is going to control their house, and that's really not the case unless you have the back end behind it. So so one of the tidbits that I would really want to encourage dealers to stay on top of is their business. Don't get ahead of yourself and so busy where you're really not learning what's going on out there. And I'm not just promoting the events. I'm talking about going back to CEDIA now. I'm going back to getting education from the industry magazines, the CE Pros, the Resi Systems, the technology integrators, keep on top of all these other things, seeing the kind of stuff that, your company does. I mean, getting their company out there in social more effectively. Admittedly, I'm not so hot at social like we talked about earlier, Ron, but how important that is. A referral business is great, but the referral industry is not just a wealthy person maybe talking to another wealthy person down the road. It's getting your name out there in multiple ways. So I guess get out of your shell a little bit, whether you're successful or not. And that's tough to do because right now it's pretty darn good out there. The economy is good. Business is probably good for a lot of integrators, but it's kind of, I think, one of our old CEDIA members had a class called Digging the Well Before You're Thirsty. I think that kind of mentality needs to hold true. And then stay on top of all the cool new technologies. I mean, you mentioned Hagai before, a guy like that with Access Networks and his company. I mean, that kind of product is equally as important of the AV gear. And a lot of dealers have embraced that. But I guess maybe get out of the old school mentality and look at what's coming, if that helps.
Awesome. Mark, that's sage advice. If you're out there listening, like this post, comment, tell Mark you agree, or if you disagree, make that comment as well. I'd be curious what your thoughts are. But Mark, I agree, and I think that you and I talk to integrators every day of the week, and so many of them are so busy being busy that they forget to slow down and work on their business, and that's maybe a more effective way to actually make money.
Yeah, sure.
But Mark, thank you very much for being a guest on Automation Unplugged. This was episode 39. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. You've got a big event next week, and carving that time out for my audience. That was great.
No, thanks for having me. And like you mentioned too, Ron, I'm not sure how they communicate, whether it's through your site or on the post, but I sincerely mean comments are welcome. If you've been to a Tech Summit, if you haven't been, if you're a manufacturer or rep listening, comments are welcome. That's how we make these things better. And
what is the best way someone can get in touch with you, Mark?
If they want to make it simple, it's the info@techsummitevents.com. So just like the website. So it's info@techsummitevents.com. That'll get to me. I mean, I have my private emails, but that's the most general one that will always funnel down and it's easy to remember.
Awesome. And I've got the Tech Summit events link on the comments.
Good. Thank you.
Here on this video. And so anyone that's interested in learning more about the events, just click on that link and you'll see that. And I'm assuming it'll be obvious as how to navigate to get to that email address. So
yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again for having me, Ron. This is a fantastic thing that you do, and I got to know your company a little better recently, and it's good. It's good that you're doing this for the industry well, and I appreciate it.
You are welcome, my friend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The latest episode of Automation Unplugged. I appreciate you spending your afternoon with me and Mark. Even if only for a few minutes, or maybe you're listening to us after the fact and maybe you're driving between appointments, something to that effect. I appreciate your attendance and you paying attention to our guests in our show. That's very nice of you. I really appreciate it. And if you want to hear or see different guests, please email me. I'm Ron at One Firefly. And if you want to stay up to date with One Firefly or what's going in One Firefly land, please subscribe to our newsletter. You can simply go to onefirefly.com and subscribe to our newsletter there. And you also can see all of our past shows. So we have 39 in the can now. And all of those, if you go to the menu, if you go to Learn, and then you go down to Automation Unplugged, you'll see our page with all of our past shows. So everybody's there. On that note, make it a great day. Remember, you get to make the decision how your day's going to go and how your week's going to go, regardless of what happens to you. So make it a great day. I know that I am. I'm going to go play with robots the rest of the week, and I will see you on the flip side. So thank you, everybody.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, buddy. All right. All right, guys. Be well. Take care.